Okay, Paul, it's all yours.
All right. Hopefully we have the slide showing. I'm not sure it is. Do we have the slide showing?
Steering committee for the Book of Mormon.
All right. If you're seeing the slide, the picture is of Graceland University from the air, looking from the west toward the administration building, which is the 1895 building center foreground. And the student union is to the left. The Shaw Center is directly behind it. And the Shaw Center is where most of the bicentennial activities would be conducted. It has an auditorium that seats close to 1,000 and two additional theaters, one of which will host probably 100 to 150, and the other one, I suspect, close to 100. So there are three gathering spaces in Shaw that will be available for us for seminars or colloquia, whatever it is that we decide to put together. But besides the introductory picture to Graceland, which is at Lamoni, Iowa, where we're anticipating we can celebrate the Book of Mormon in a place that carries a Book of Mormon name, I want to introduce people who I hope in every case I've got this correct, that are interested in serving on the steering committee for this bicentennial celebration. And I saw that we have Josh Gailey from the Monongahela Church of Christ. He's an evangelist there, and he's already expressed interest in getting young people involved, particularly in the celebration and singing and that kind of thing. Rachel Killebrew is the archivist from the Community of Christ. We have communication with the First Presidency, in which the First Presidency has said they will prayerfully consider becoming co-sponsors. And we have responded to that, but haven't yet got an answer back. But in other words, there's a very favorable prospect that the Community of Christ will be a co-sponsor of the activity. Ron Smith is of the Restorationist movement. He's one of those long-term advocates for the Book of Mormon. Steve Murdoch is on Lamoni City Council, and so we have representation there. I haven't seen him on the forum yet tonight. John Godfrey is on the Graceland staff. He is assistant to the president, and so he is our representative on site for facilities. And then Casey Griffiths has volunteered to represent BYU. And so those people are the ones I'm currently seeing seated as part of the steering committee with strong connections to possible co-sponsorships. And then you'll notice that I've listed as well Val Larson, James Lucas, two people who have contributed repeatedly on our forum, and people that I think certainly belong in working on what kind of presentations we get made. Mark Hensley has expressed a good deal of interest in youth activities. John Charles Duffy has expressed interest in helping to coordinate the religious activities that are related to the conference. Aaron Laughlin is our treasurer for the Lamoni Historical Association. Diane Slade is our secretary, and so they are continuing those functions since the Lamoni Historical Association is a founding sponsor. And I should point out to you, some of you would know or remember Alma Blair. Back in 1970, Alma Blair proposed that there should be a Lamoni Historical Association founded, and we did that in January of this year. And so here are, well, three of us then are on the board: Aaron, Diane, and myself. Eva Yelle is a Lamoni planner for significant events. Barb Walden is the coordinator for the um, Community of Christ Historic Sites Foundation. And Eric Scott is one who's been teaching Book of Mormon at the Stone Church for many years, and his father was wrote a fascinating book that he's reported about on this forum. Dewey Clark comes to us from a Hawaiian perspective. Blair Bryant has revised already the Book of Mormon, between the covers of the Book of Mormon, written by his mother and illustrated by his father, so that there will be a new edition available for distribution that perhaps as a prize for young people, because the stories for the Book of Mormon, as presented by Vernon Bryant, have blessed three generations. John Hamer from Canada um, has a congregation that I think reaches about 80 nations. And so to have his involvement is great for publicity as well. He, as an educator and a speaker, is another of the awesome ones. Robert Cook is our technology person who supplied the link for our presentation tonight, and um, he is he's past president of the Nauvoo Galesburg region, and then he served as volunteer CFO as well as president. Finally, I think he stepped aside from that and got other people to accept those responsibilities. And so he's pretty well footloose, fancy free, except that he continues as treasurer of the John Whitmer Historical Association, I think perhaps of the Masonic Society as well as being very much involved in Nauvoo and just about everything Illinois. Frank Fry is a Book of Mormon translator who's been working on it in Swahili, I believe, as well as Spanish. And he and I hitchhiked to Mexico when we were in college and spent a fascinating year together there. And so because of that deep personal relationship and long-term interest, and Frank sent me an email today to make sure that we got the time right. So I haven't seen him on yet, but probably he will be. All right, so that's my introduction of the people that I currently have listed on the steering committee. I have not put a limit on the steering committee, and I'm intending for the steering committee to be in charge, which means that I will have voice and vote, but the steering committee people are the ones that I want to be able to raise their voices and fundamentally step in to share their ingenuity, share their passion, share their genius to make it so that we can put together a remarkable experience. Which means then that I think we better begin with a prayer. Author of the universe, who promised to come to the children of men and did, in the form of Jesus the Christ, to offer hope for us to live eternally. We bow in appreciation, in awe that we see your signature in the masterpieces of your creation, evident in our own DNA, in the galaxies, in all that you have made beautiful, internally and externally. We gather this evening to embark and continue upon a journey begun by our ancestors thousands of years ago, a journey to the promised land, a place and people of peace, one prophesied and sought by the ancients that one day their descendants would know. It's exemplified by the Book of Mormon with its accounts of migrations to the land of promise, most of which ended in dysfunctionality, wickedness, and war. And yet, those who followed Jesus found the promised land, learned to live in peace, taught their children to reason in the language of love so they would learn war no more. This evening, we pray for your Spirit to lead us, as it did the families of Jared and Lehi, to be able to celebrate the remarkable gift of the promised land, and to open our hearts and minds to withstand the turbulence of life as we are guided by your hand. For we gather to plan, to celebrate, to acknowledge the awesome nature of your design uncovered 200 years ago in a book, which survives to instruct, to tell the stories, to inspire those who will give it a second look. And we thank you for blessing us with the hope it offers, the challenge to embrace the prospects for our children to have life eternally. While seeking your blessing on this steering committee, volunteers to guide our ongoing journey to the promised land, to be celebrated in 5 years with joyous enteleki. And so we pray in the name of Jesus, the Prince of Peace. Amen. Now then, ladies and gentlemen, let me turn your attention to the nature of what we're up against. Whoop, let me back up. I think I've got an extra slide in there. Yes, okay, this is where we should be. Another picture, aerial picture of Graceland, and this time looking at it from the south. And again, the Ed building from 1895 is in the foreground, the student union behind it, and then the commons for meals is back center, and Gunsolly Hall, the men's dorm, and there's two wings of Gunsolly are on the back right in brick. And then behind those on the other side of the street is a complex of some 45 apartments that John Godfrey indicates will be made available for guests for this event. But as we begin, we need to consider just what will be the scope of this celebration. When I started thinking about it and proposing it, I was thinking in terms of a 3-day weekend. And the more I've had a chance to talk with other people about it, I'm convinced that the steering committee needs to reconsider that, because there's an awful lot of interest being expressed in this activity. A lot of people want to have a chance to share in it, sharing their expertise, their testimonies, their celebratory activities. And so perhaps we ought to be considering a week. Perhaps not everybody stays for a week, but comes for the 2 or 3 days that they're most interested in. But anyway, the steering committee needs to work on this. How many days do we need? How many presentations in a symposium? How many celebratory events? To what extent can it be international? Clearly, our technology would allow us to bring in all kinds of internet conferees, or even presentations on Zoom or whatever the current one is by then. And then, what are the youth activities that we can plan on? And I guess I want to go back to that later. But anyway, I just give you a preliminary sketch here. And so I'm wondering if possibly the steering committee needs to put together a survey to find out just what the interest is, so that we can plan most effectively. Any questions or comments that you have? I'm not wanting to dominate the conversation tonight. I'm wanting to open up the topic and invite people, particularly those people that are on the steering committee, to ask questions, make comments, and I think our secretary is taking notes to give us a report at the end of what we have come up with. And since I've got the slides in front of me, I don't see the gallery, so you'll just have to sing out if you want to ask a question or make a comment. Okay, hearing no singing, let's move on. Now, one major section of the conference, I think, will be what I initially thought was going to be a symposium, but a symposium tends to be a 1 or 2 day event where academics share presentations. It may very well be a conference is the appropriate term, and they are larger and they're multifaceted activities, and a week-long conference is something that I think the steering committee should be considering. And that could include a symposium or a colloquy. A colloquy it tends to be more extended academic set of presentations by specialists on a given topic. And so what I have listed on the left, you'll see topics of the geography of the book, the archaeology of the book, the fundamental messages the Book of Mormon shares, the linguistic and stylistic issues that our experts have found, and that's particularly the place where people like Brian Stubbs, his marvelous linguistic research is something that I would think ought to be there. And the witnesses to the book, that's a matter of interest or numerous stories. And then I think we also need to have room for the controversies concerning it. The analytics, just what's included, and the translation issues. And here we get people like Frank Fry, who's devoted a major portion of his life translating in multiple languages. And the fact that we have, well, for example, we have the large print edition of the Book of Mormon at Lamoni, published in 1892. And we have 6 printings of that. And we have people who've collected and studied those. So that kind of research perhaps belongs in this as well. But anyway, I'm looking for a team of people that'll work together to put together the conference. I think probably I'm inclined to think that it ought to be a colloquy. And one of the topics would be the benefits accrued. I'm anticipating, I just had the privilege of monitoring a panel discussion at the John Whitmer Association. And it was fascinating because we had 3 people on the panel, and their presentations on the topic before them really was extremely instructive, valuable education. And for us to be able to get that kind of educational message and have it published, I think is one of the benefits of having such a symposium or a colloquy. And again, I'm yielding to comments, and if anybody's anxious to volunteer right quick, you're welcome to do so. And there are several people I would like to encourage to volunteer. So if you don't, I guess maybe you'll have an email coming from me. All right, we'll go on. Yes, Brian.
Paul?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm interested. Remind me when this is?
2030.
Oh, 5 years out yet. Okay.
Probably end of July.
Okay. Hey, I think there's a chance I'll still be alive then. We'll see what comes.
You better still be alive, my friend. I mean, you only put in half of the years of work on your linguistic study that the Lord has put in your heart. So come on, we got a long ways to go yet.
Yeah, I'll try to stick around. Yeah.
All right, thank you. And yes, and certainly you're one of those people I think ought to be on that team to work out the presentations. I'm a little apprehensive there because it strikes me that there may very well be a lot more people wanting to present than we will have slots for presenting. In which case, how to say no. Or maybe we expand the setting to cover more. So you guys on that commission have a responsibility, I think, to try to set it up so that we can maximize the opportunity for all. Okay.
Yeah, but I was volunteering to present if you want me to. I wasn't volunteering to be on the committee that steers it and everything.
Well, thank you for volunteering to present, and I certainly want you there, but if I could entice you to be on that committee as well, I think the linguist is likely to be slighted otherwise. But I am so pleased that you've been able to present on this forum and do so with such a profound impact. And I think that's the kind of thing that we need for the colloquy to come out of our bicentennial. All right, moving on then, the celebratory activities. Celebratory activities clearly must include music. And Chad Elliott has volunteered, he's a professional musician. He's volunteered to put together a presentation. Josh Gailey has indicated that he wants opportunity for the Monongahela youth to be able to significantly participate in the celebration. I presume that's with music. I think I saw him on, so I'll let him speak for himself.
Hi, Paul. Yeah, I'm here and very willing to help coordinate some of that. That'd be great.
Good. Well, and Jack Ergo is one of the people that ought to be on the steering committee, but he's I think out of the country for a couple of months. And he, I think, told me he had 6 musicals that had been submitted to him about the Book of Mormon, and he thought there's some possibility that they could be revamped, revised, and um, abridged to provide a creative musical presentation as a part of the celebration. So that's the kind of thing that strikes me as being rather exciting. If we get original compositions, we had an original composition for his retirement, and I got to be in the choir for that, and it was shocking for me because there are 30 pages and we had 1 hour to practice, and those 30 pages had at least one time change on each page. Oh wow, it was a challenge. But we ended up together, and so that was just pretty exciting that we actually ended that masterpiece together, and he left with a smile on his face with the whole auditorium full of people applauding him. So being able to have an original composition, I think, would be delightful. The same applies for drama. So I don't,
Uh,
I didn't hear that, Brian. You're muted. Okay, I hear background interest. Okay, well, notice that I'm advocating that we should be considering things like 1 act plays, possibly even movies, maybe even a pageant. What can we do to dramatize this 200-year-old birthday and celebrate it? So there needs to be a team of people that work on this and select the things that are actually going to happen and nurture the ones that can happen, help provide the funding for some perhaps. Um, I would anticipate that we perhaps ought to have a talent show for the young people and offer scholarships for those that are outstanding. As someone who writes local poetry myself, I would also be very interested in seeing what young people in particular can do in terms of poetics on the book. And then, of course, we have things like Brother Bryant's mother's book, which is telling the story. But how about having the kids tell the Book of Mormon stories? And then, of course, I put a question mark beside number 6. What do you folks come up with? What are the celebratory activities that you would like to see and that we should be considering up front?
A lot of this is very throwback to the Centennial Conference the church did in 1930. They had the Gretzky um, Centennial Oratorio, and they had a pageant that was put on, and there was a yearbook that is very, very common, but you'll see it float through periodically, where they did histories of various church sites, and they had, I think, pictures of the leadership that people sign, like an actual yearbook and things like that. I think I've got a PDF of it somewhere I can send you, Paul. Um, so I could see drawing more from that, because you're already kind of on that. You'll see the centennial pins with the ribbon on them, and they had ribbons for different things. You don't see the ribbons too often, but every now and then for what role people played, and they were the metal, looked like the auditorium about that big. They did a lot of really cool stuff at that one, so I think we can look into that a little deeper. And then to circle back on some of your other thoughts, I would do a survey on the length of time, because a week is an awful long time for people to take off work and travel, especially to Lamoni. I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just even getting people in for conference and then having them in for something else is difficult. Even getting people to be able to stay the full week of conference is difficult now. It's costly, the travel. It's a lot of people don't have that kind of time off work. So it just to see how people feel. one of the things that would help steer that is when are you going to put out the call for papers? Just to kind of get a feel for what people want to do. Like I think John Whitmer does it with their cutoff date of April 6th, knowing that the conference is usually at the end of September. But they already kind of have their layout. But you don't want to be too far out because you need to know people are still going to be interested, topside breathing, working on their topic, but you want it to be close enough that they're still going to be doing all of that stuff and ready to present. So that's something that we would need to consider as well. And then I know you had some partner organizations. Have you guys considered partnering with some of the periodicals like John Whitmer via Restoration Studies? So currently Catherine Hill is editor, or some of the other organizations like that. I think Casey might be able to get in touch with that have done. I know there's a Book of Mormon Studies journal for a while and things like that might be willing to source, share our call for papers and get that information out as well. We'd have a broader audience. That's just a lot to throw at you all at once, but.
Oh, thank you, Rachel. But I think the people of the forum will understand why I consider you such a valuable resource for the steering committee. Because yes, you're coming up with the 100-year celebration. There's some things we can benefit there. The need to survey. I would anticipate that if we do go to the 1-week session, that people probably would not spend the whole week, but would come for a couple of days that they're most interested in. But certainly we ought to have the provision so that either would become possible. The question, though, is up to the steering committee to work that out. And so I agree. I think this survey is probably necessary to guide us. But thank you very much for your comments.
On the papers, I think there probably wouldn't be much trouble coming up with plenty of papers, because we wouldn't even have to have original research. There's all kinds of good work that's being done. Something like Brian Stubbs has already presented fabulous stuff to us a couple of times, and there are conferences every year at the Book of Mormon Studies Association, and they have every year probably at least 5 or 6 presentations that could be reprised at this centennial. So we wouldn't have to have a call for original research for the audience that we'll have. I think it could be things that have been presented in other forums that could be then represented at this conference.
Yes, thank you, Val. I think that's absolutely correct. And it may be that the people working on that topic will want to categorize those that are new as compared to those that are redone. But again, I would anticipate there should be publication coming out of this to make it so the educational value can be enhanced.
Hello, this is Diane Slade. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, hi, Diane.
Okay. Hi. So I'm traveling, so this kind of makes it a little difficult, but I'm trying to keep notes of everything that's going on. If you guys could just say your name as to who you are before you make your comment, because it doesn't pull up on my screen. So that way I can keep better notes if possible.
Okay, well, your last speaker was Val Larson.
Thank you.
Prior to that was Rachel Killebrew. And prior to that was Brian Stubbs.
Brian. Okay, perfect. Thank you, everybody.
And I think I'm the only other one that's been speaking.
Yes.
And you'll recognize my voice because
yes, I got you.
Steve and Diane are my associates at the Joseph Smith III home, and coming out of the LDS tradition, it's a fascinating thing to see us for us to be working together, sharing our commonalities, and trying to bridge some gaps. All right,
Val Larson jumping in here again. There's 2 big aspects to something like this. The one side is the production of the event, but at least equally important is the marketing of the event. And you've mentioned that, Paul, but
Okay.
in some ways, the production of the event might be the easier of the two tasks because we have constituencies in all these different restoration traditions, and like I really have no idea how it would be done within my own LDS tradition, but there would be lots of people I think who might be interested if we could get the word out. But in each of these different traditions, there might be different ways to reach out to people, and the other thing is, for something like this, especially if it's going to last a week, it would be good to get the publicity going at least a year ahead of time. That's the kind of stuff that somebody has to plan out quite a ways, especially if they live as almost everybody does, quite a ways away from Lamoni.
Good point, Val. Thank you. Let me emphasize that that issue will be coming up when I turn it over to Aaron Laughlin, and I'm not sure what he's going to say about it, but at least it is on the agenda. So, question of how do we market appropriately is a major question. Let me move to the youth activities. I've had Mark Hensley indicate interest in working on this team, and I've listed some possibilities here. But fundamentally, we're looking at crafts, things like pottery making, maybe flint knapping. I have a 5-gallon tub of obsidian nodules that could be used for producing. Well, unfortunately, it's so sharp that they may be too dangerous. But nonetheless, we do have some local knappers that I think would be very interested and happy to help teach people about that. Anyway, it's one to consider. Costuming, of course. How do you costume people in the Book of Mormon period? An archery competition or an atlatl competition. That's what the illustration is. If you have the spear thrower and maybe an elk or a deer as a target, then there could be competition for learning to use the atlat. Or possibly with bolas, the 3 balls that are on the thongs that are swung, and that's again a native weapon. And the foods. What can we do in terms of replicating foods that would have been available in the Book of Mormon? I think that face painting is something that ought to be considered. I think our kids, many of them, would appreciate that. And then I want to mention again Brother Bryant's new edition of Between the Covers of the Book of Mormon. And then I had a picture previously of native dancing, and so the possibility of native dances. Again, I don't have my First Nations contacts tend to be older, and so the ones that I used to have to perform native dances are now old people. So it may be, and they would be able to provide a variety of dances, and maybe that goes into entertainment, but youth activities is where I put it. And again, I'm open for the steering committee to move things around and make things work better than what I can think of. And then I certainly would want to advocate that I think that a talent show for young people would be one of the activities that we should plan in the celebration. I've been amazed to see the range of talent at the youth gatherings, and to be able to inspire our young people to recognize connections between their talents and what's evident in the Book of Mormon, I think would be a good positive tie. And of course, we want the kids to have a chance to participate in the symposium if they care to. Any comments or questions about the youth activities?
I'd like to. Here's Aaron Laughlin. I think if I was a kid, I'd like to go dig up the golden plates. So maybe we could set something up and have a place where Joseph Smith found the plates, and get some trees planted. We got 5 years to grow them, and go through the story of how he found the plates and that kind of stuff.
Oh, wow, interesting.
I mean,
Paul, can you hear me?
that's more interesting to me.
Okay, Eric, is that you, Eric Scott?
Yes.
Jump
The
in.
Book of Mormon Foundation places in the field every year a dozen youth interns. And knowing what those interns do and how they further the um, knowledge of the Book of Mormon and what their duties are, I think might be interesting to include in our program.
Very good. Well, what are some of those duties? What kinds of activities do the interns do?
Well, we ought to get a hold of them. They publish every quarter. They put out a publication of what they're doing, and so my most recent publication from them showed pictures of each of the interns and outlined their qualifications and what they did while they were on their internship. And they do this every year.
I remember reading that, and I agree. This would be a great place for them to be able to focus their energy. So having them producing activities here would be a very interesting option. Thank you, Eric. Any other comments about the youth activities? All right, then we'll move on. Religious elements. John Charles Duffy has volunteered to coordinate, and he will, of course, be interested in having Book of Mormon scripture and themes and music, and I'm not sure what for action. I haven't seen him on the forum tonight, but he is a very experienced planner. Well, he's the one that has for years planned the June 27th. It's not a celebration; it's the commemoration of the murders of Joseph and Hiram Smith, when the bodies were murdered at Carthage, and then he's conducted that activity at the gravesite in Nauvoo with a wide range of interest from across the restoration movement. And so he has volunteered to help with that. Other ideas, or other people interested in joining John Charles?
Paul, this is Josh Cayley. Just a comment tied to that maybe for us to consider is, with this bicentennial being very diverse in different aspects of the restoration, it might be fascinating to have a night each night where each branch of the restoration movement holds a religious service that we all attend and we all give respect to, and we can all learn from and appreciate and show the diversity of the different groups that celebrate the book and enjoy the spirit from one another as each group kind of takes charge for a night of their own religious service that we all participate in. It's just something to consider, because I think one of the beauties of this event is the potential diversity. And with involvement and religious activity involved, you're going to get an increase probably in buy-in and support from leadership across the restoration movement, because they see themselves within this, and will have a potential greater buy-in. So it might be a couple of success stories tied together. But if that's not what John Charles is thinking, that's fine. It's just a thought to throw into this discussion.
Well, thank you for that idea. And whether he's thinking about it or not, I'm glad we have it in the notes, because we're at the beginning, and this is a chance to get ideas like that out so they can be considered. I think it's a delightful idea that celebrate and allow each of the several dimensions of the Smith-Rigdon complex to express themselves. And I just really, well, not everybody might want to, but on the other hand, for those that would care to, I think there should be at least 3 or 4 opportunities for that kind of experience. Certainly, I like the idea of being able to have us worship together and do so appreciating the vantage points that other parts of the movement can highlight. Thank you, Josh. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Oh, and I've got an idea for music.
Go ahead, Shane.
Yes. Well, I know this is a little biased because I'd be doing it, of course. But what about an Elvis gospel show? Yeah. As a matter of fact, I'm actually doing one at my Mission Center conference this Saturday.
Elvis Gospel Show.
Yeah.
Well, Elvis did have a copy of the Book of Mormon, as I understand.
Yes.
Interesting. Well, again, that's one of the reasons I'm anxious to get us put together with commissions or teams looking at these options so that we can sort them out and get invitations sent, decide what we want, and
Yeah.
have a good deal of diversity.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and I know that Casey Griffiths will back me up on that because the last couple of times I saw him, he asked me if I brought my Elvis costume with me.
Okay, well, yeah, thank you. I'm anxious. Very good that we get ideas like this on the plan up front so that people can appreciate our possibilities. Okay. Let's
Paul,
turn
Chris
over.
Thomas has his hand up.
Go ahead, Josh. Oh,
Oh,
no, that's
I just had a suggestion for Shane. You could call it the King is Not Dead Ministries, Shane, and just do the religious music from Elvis.
Yes, well that's what I had in mind because I said Elvis Gospel Show.
There we go.
The King is Not Dead. All right. Oh, that's fun. Thank you, Chris. And there should be some levity in this whole celebration. But
Paul,
yes, go ahead.
since you can't see everybody, Casey Griffith has joined us.
Well, good. Well,
yes. Sorry, I couldn't get the meeting link to connect.
No,
I just barely got a new computer and figured it out. So
yeah,
please.
You dismissed me suggesting that I do an Elvis Gospel Show at this.
Oh, well, I'm definitely in favor of that. So carry on.
All right. Well, let's kick it over to Aaron. We have Aaron's presentation on as the treasurer to let us take a look at costs and so forth. So, Aaron, it's your turn.
Guess I need to turn the audio on, huh? Well, we can put a budget together for each of the things that we're trying to do when we get that kind of solidified and in a framework, and that would be including land that we might have to rent or lease and then come up with some ideas on cost and if people would donate. I'd really like to know
Aaron, you're dropping out, and so somehow we need to get your audio working better. I think you've frozen as well. Aaron, come back. Maybe need to get.
I think we just lost him.
Okay, well, he is an excellent fundraiser. He is the one that has helped to raise, I think, $100,000 for the Camp Midiog, a group of kids that are in wheelchairs and getting a week of camp every summer. So you got that set up for in perpetuity. And as a treasurer for the Historic Society Association, then I know he stays busy with all of the things he's doing, but for him to be able to help us with fundraising, scholarships, if we could fundraise enough to make it so that we can bypass fees, that would be nice. But if we have to have fees, then again, that's part of it. But the marketing issue then sort of falls under his bailiwick, and so that's why marketing is listed there on the screen share.
He's back, Paul.
Good. Aaron is
Aaron?
back.
Yeah, I got booted completely off in the mid sentence.
All right, welcome back.
Yeah, there's,
Okay, Ed.
yeah, there's some fundraising things we might be able to do in the 5 years. One thing that I came up with was here in Kansas City, we've got this FIFA soccer thing coming to town where millions of people are going to be here in town. We're trying to look at how we might be able to leverage that to be able to get some donations. We have several campgrounds in the area that have open spaces, including Chihuahua and maybe Far West and Doniphan, that we might be able to rent space out to be able to make some money to be able to put into this. And being a 501c3 nonprofit, it would be deductible for the folks that are doing that. So that's one of the things I was thinking about doing. And then as we get closer and closer, I think we need to probably start making a list of the items that we're looking at and kind of prioritize which ones we think are going to come to fruition, and then put some dollars to it to see, what kind of money that we might need, and then come up with how we might be able to either raise the funds or be able to do fundraising activities with groups that want to donate their time to the program. I'm not really thinking about us as probably average age of 60 or 50 or 60 years old, being able to do those things, but being able to manage younger folks that might want to do some community service. And as for the scholarships, Paul, are you thinking about scholarships from Graceland or scholarships to come up and help, guides, that kind of thing, like they do at conferences?
Oh, I hadn't thought about guides. Thank you. That's one of the reasons that I wanted to have a steering committee, because you get all these better ideas coming from people that have had range experience. But yes, yeah, when I hosted the National Chess Championship for Scholastics in 2000 at Bartle Hall, we had 5,000 kids, and I had a bunch of volunteers that were there to help guide people to where they needed to go, not only in the facility, but also through the city. So yeah, your idea of having guides is certainly something that ought to be considered. But I was thinking in terms of scholarships for young people to perform. Graceland clearly is interested in scholarships, but there may very well be other kinds of scholarships that would help to entice youth to participate.
Okay. Mode of transportation would also be another thing. Having older folks walk throughout Lamoni might not be such a great idea, especially in July when it's 100 degrees out.
Well, but this July it was only 80.
Yeah. I was at Doniphan during that 80 plus 20 degrees. Marketing. So we can do marketing quite a few different ways. We can actually send notes to the media. And I have a friend that does some of this for Midiog, like a news flash, and they just send a note as to, hey, this is going on this week, and if you'd like to, they put it on their community board and broadcast it several times. But it would be good to start a year or so before to get some periodicals and some things like that written up about it, the organization, and maybe be able to sponsor. Maybe if we had articles in several of the Herald is one that I can think of, as well as other publications that the LDS Church uses, as well as any of the other restoration groups. How to provide economic success for the organization or for the celebration. I think I think basically getting the word out to see if there's a great interest in that, and taking it back to the time period in which the Book of Mormon was discovered, and the stories that came out of it would be very good. And like you've discussed, quite a few things for the whole family, not just the scholars or the academics, children as well. Things that would make them excited about that period of time. Maybe selling bonnets or something like that for the little girls, or suspenders for the boys, or whatever. That's really all I had.
Okay, thank you, Aaron.
Mhm.
Any other comments to help out with how can we successfully navigate the financing for this? The Untold Lamoni Stories at Shaw Center that Steve Slade is putting together are going to cost us about $1,000 a day for use of the Shaw Center. And so, given that figure, then that could be added into the calculations, whether we're talking about 3 days or a week. $1,000 a day for the Shaw Center is very reasonable, given the fact that it gives us 3 very usable presentation rooms. All right. Any other questions or comments at this stage?
At the this is Val Larson, at the Book of Mormon Studies Association, we're having our first meeting at the LDS Church History Library. And if you like, I could broach the topic with them. Maybe they'd even have some funds or something to help with it. I don't know, but I can ask them if they would have any interest in helping to either sponsor or publicize the event.
Well, and if they would be willing to sponsor, to have someone from that organization on the steering committee would be desirable.
All right, I'll check with them when I'm meeting with them at the BOMSA meeting.
If I can too, there's also a group called the Book of Mormon Academy at BYU that meets to develop scholarship on the Book of Mormon, and I could introduce this to them as well. And it might be possible to get some funding through BYU to hold the conference as well. So I'd be happy to open doors there and see if somebody wanted to be on the steering committee.
Great, thank you, Casey. That'd be awesome. Yeah,
And who was that just mentioned that?
That was Casey Griffiths.
Thank you, Casey.
Yeah, that's that. I think the more organizations that we have sponsoring, the better. Just simply because that hopefully will open more doors for more participation. And that takes us back to Josh's suggestion. If we get those organizations to give presentations about themselves, worship experiences, for example, that helps to enrich the whole body, because we get better acquainted with the people who are the people of the restoration. And we have that very unique and special recognition that our whole restoration movement comes after the Book of Mormon. All the other great religions, as I understand it, have the religion formed first and the scriptures follow. For us, the scriptures come first. That's sort of a unique prioritization, and I really like it. So for us to be able to demonstrate the impact that that's had upon us, I think would be useful. So thank you, Casey. That's a great idea.
Paul, this is Josh Cayley. Do you have a ballpark of how much needs raised? I know the numbers of how many people might attend might impact that number, but do you have any rough idea of what it takes to put this together besides the room rental, which obviously that's, essentially depending on how long the event goes is $1,000 a day, but what else? What's our total?
Okay, we have access to the commons, which is the food facility, and I am buying food tickets for the RV volunteers that are coming to the Joseph Smith House and it's $45 for 5 meals. And those are all you can eat meals. And so that, I mean, I think probably we should boost that to 50 or so to anticipate that kind of price. But you know, that's pretty reasonable. And Graceland, in other words, is bending over backwards to try to accommodate, and therefore, I think that we're going to be not well with Aaron's fundraising ability. I'm confident that we can pull this off economically and come out of it in the black.
In order to find out how much money we're going to need, we need to kind of put together all the things that we want to do, and then I can put some numbers to it, and then go out for the fundraising for it. And people are going to want to know, hey, what am I donating to? And if we don't know, then that's not going to be very helpful. If we know exactly what we want to do, I can go out and explain to them exactly what we want, and this money would go to this, and so on and so forth. And
well, and Aaron, I think that we should not count on you doing it all, but you should have a team of people working with you that can help to expand that operation, because the steering committee, I think, will have more people than you that are capable of helping to raise that money.
That's awesome, because I'm still in the middle of trying to be the everything for Chihuahua right now.
This is Josh. With all the organizations represented even on here, I mean, you know, it's probably possible to tap that and have certain level sponsorships for the organizations based on, you know, and have some result and output for them based on, you know, a platinum tier sponsorship or different things, you know. So I'm sure that money can be raised from many of the different groups that are even on this call tonight.
Yeah, possibly to tie your ideas together there, Josh. If an organization wants to be able to put together a special celebratory program, they can buy that slot.
On the marketing, I think it's almost certain. I can't imagine that the LDS Church won't be doing a number of different things in 2030 to commemorate the Book of Mormon. I suspect that's probably true of the other organizations as well. And people might in that year put out lists of all the different things that are happening to celebrate the Book of Mormon that year. And so we would want to be on those lists as that gets publicized. This won't be the only thing that happens that year. I can guarantee you that.
But we are wanting to get our foot in the door early.
From my church's side, they're already, the presidency was talking to me, and I brought up this program, and they are already in the works of planning one of our world conferences. So they're, you know, and obviously it's going to be in the summer. So hopefully we can get these spaced far enough apart, you know.
Good. Yes, good. Well, thank you all for the comments. I would take some time for review, and then we'll invite Diane to give her summation. I am impressed with the good comments we received, and certainly would be happy to yield any more. If I need to go back over slides, I'd be happy to do that too.
Paul, you said that somebody might know what the room rate was going to be at Graceland, like per night. The food, I guess, sounds like about $10 per meal, which is very reasonable. But how much would the dorm rooms cost to rent? Do you have any idea about that?
Steve Slade, do you happen to remember what John Godfrey shared with us about that?
He never mentioned anything about room rates. He just said that they might be available.
I'm pretty leery of $10 per meal, especially with this economy the way it's going. In 5 years from now, it could be twice that.
Well,
That-
if it's twice that, but the money is inflated enough that essentially people are making more of them, yeah,
Well,
there
that's
might be inflation. But the thing is that it's really inexpensive for right now for an all-you-can-eat meal. If it's costing $9 per all-you-can-eat meal, they're doing something pretty efficiently there.
they're losing money. Yeah, they're losing money. Yeah. Um, I mean, I like the economics of scale and everything, but that you go to McDonald's and get a hamburger and fries and it's $12. So, and that's terrible food. Commons food's pretty good though. At least it was when I was there in 1980. But
Well,
I don't know what it's like lately. But
I ate there last week, and I had pasta with beet sauce, and I had potatoes with gravy. I had a chunk of fish and a chunk of roast beef. Um, and then I got to the important stuff. The sugar cookies were fine. Those snickerdoodles, but it was the brownies with soft serve ice cream on top that topped off the meal. And then I had cranberry juice to drink. All of that for my $9 fee. Oh, and I didn't get into salad. I had a bowl full of salad as well.
So it sounded like this fellow Larson again. It sounded like there might be some doubt still as to whether we actually have those rooms locked down. That may be a sine qua non given the size of Lamoni. So if we don't have access to those dorm rooms, I don't think you're going to be able to sustain a very large crowd in Lamoni, are we?
Well, the Lamoni has only a couple of motels, and so yes, you're right in terms of housing that way. On the other hand, Lamoni has a lot of families that'd be happy to take in somebody for a few days, and so that's another area that can be explored. And as Aaron has suggested, we do also have campgrounds. There's camping facilities on the Graceland campus, so people that have the campers can hook up there quite readily. Yeah, you're right. I would say once we get to 1,000 people, then Lamoni is going to get crowded.
So probably on the logistics, locking down a firm commitment and getting a price on the dorm rooms being available and affordable is a starting point for this process, I think.
Now, we have that at least tentatively with the agreement from the college president and John Godfrey. Godfrey, though, has been working with Steve Slade on getting the Untold Lamoni story started in February 27 and 28, an annual event leading up to our Sesquicentennial in 2029. And we hope that will be a several-day program by then. And that that brings us then to the bicentennial in 2030. And so Graceland is looking at the prospect of this set of historic activities building to what may very well be a week-long project. And so I'm confident in terms of the apartment housing, 45 apartments directly across the road. Then not all of the dormitory facilities are air conditioned. And so that becomes a limiting factor. But there will not be other people on campus at that time. So we would have access to the air conditioned ones that are available.
Paul,
Yes.
I don't mean to put you on the spot right this second, but is your farm, do they farm that all year, or would that be a port where we could have camping tents out there with maybe some showers brought in or something like that for housing?
My farm My farmhouse is rented. Hopefully it will be rented again then too. The cropland is also rented, but I do have a very nice fishing pond, but that's 7 miles from town. Uh, the Joseph Smith Historic Site becomes another option. We have possible locations there that people could put out tents, camp, and so what you're suggesting is possible at the Joseph Smith site. And then
Okay.
there's
How much
also,
land do you have? Do you have 5 acres there at the?
well, there's immediately around the house, there's 3 acres. Then we have cropland beyond that. So basically, the 3 acres around the house would be readily available.
Okay.
Isn't some of that land for haying, or is that the extra land you're talking about?
The hay crop is beyond the 3 acres.
Okay.
The orchard would be included in the 3 acres, but you can have tents in the orchard. And then the area around the schoolhouse, there's a pretty substantial acreage there that could easily be used for tenting. So yes, Aaron, I've go ahead and put me on the spot. I recognize that when I volunteered to host the National Chess Championship in 2000 in Kansas City, I didn't realize at the time I was volunteering over 200 people without consulting them in advance. Here, I'm trying to get 200 people to volunteer in advance so that I don't feel quite so strung out in hosting this activity. So I appreciate that we've had a number of you that have agreed to be on the steering committee and start helping put things together. And I appreciate the ideas. Let's turn it over to Diane and get the review that she has.
Okay, so one thing, just thank you everyone that did show up. This is amazing to see such a large group. So I think a large thing that comes with this that will help solidify everything is we need to get this survey built. One, to see what you guys are wanting, what area you guys are wanting to help out in, so we can start dividing things out that way. And then we're also looking at finding out what is everyone's idea of how long we should have this event. So with that one, we did have, let me go back to my notes here. Brian Stubbs has already offered that he would like to do one of the presentations. So thank you, Brian, for already jumping in on that. We've also have Josh Gailey, who mentioned that he would like to help out with the music. And I think, wasn't it Josh, along with Shane, who brought up the idea of having music with the Elvis Gospel Show, or the King is Not Dead ministry there, which is just a nice way of bringing that about. Val Larson has a connection with the Book of Mormon Studies Association that he is going to check with them to see if they'd be willing to either sponsor or give us some ideas of ways to make this all come about. So that'll help. And then also Casey Griffith said that he would probably reach out to the Book of Mormon Academy through BYU and do the same thing with them, see how they might be able to assist us in bringing this together. Let's see. We had a really good idea from Josh Gailey, having giving a time each night or each time for a branch of the restoration groups to be able to testify and give maybe a small service to help bring each of the restorations ideas of the Book of Mormon and their thoughts and how they are using it to come closer to Christ. And we then had the Aaron Laughlin is working diligently to try to get everything put together. Our main thing is we really need to have a breakdown of finalizing what we are really doing as far as how many days, how many people we're looking at, and different things. So we can start working on budget. He has some ideas for fundraising using the KC soccer, maybe renting out some campground spaces to help out with those budget ideas. But once we can get this list going and prioritizing it, then we can do better with getting the fundraising going for that. We're also mentioned working with some scholarships. One to maybe help towards, the youth to help get them involved. I know one time in our last meeting, we talked about having them write either a story or something along that, and then they would submit those beforehand. And that would work towards maybe, offering a scholarship towards that. Was mentioned last time. It was mentioned that we should look into have thoughts of transportation because it could, this year was a very nice summer. Next year might not, or this in 2030 might not be as nice. So we should look, having transportation options, getting people to, the different events. We need to also start, everything's a start, but no later than a year before the event, we need to really jump on the marketing aspect of it, whether it be through articles in the newspaper, sharing it on our media sites. There's notes to a media and broadcasting on our community boards. Also finding out from different organizations that are also planning their events and trying to jump on board with, all of us helping each other out to advertise for each other on that. And be some of the ways. Academy. The other thing we were just kind of briefly talking about regarding finances is we do know at this point in time, the Shaw Center for that 3 presentation rooms would be $1,000 a day. So it gives us just an idea. In 5 years, that could definitely change. But there's that. At the moment, we do have access to 45 apartments. We're not too sure on the rates, but once again, everything is very fluid when we're talking rates because we're talking so far out. But we can also look at different motels anywhere from Bethany to Leon area for that, and also a possibility of using maybe some area, the 3 acres around Liberty Hall for camping. So those are some of the main things that we talked about and all the ideas that everyone was bringing about. But I think one of the main things that needs to happen right now is get this survey going so we can find out where all of you are wanting to place yourself amongst that list of, either helping out with one of the 10 panel ideas or helping out with the music or the kids section. We just need to know where you want to be so then we can start grouping people and making this a little bit more fluid and having these meetings go a little bit better for us. Rachel mentioned, she was also mentioning the survey is very important to get things out. So I guess on the survey, I can email something out to everybody, but do we want, especially when we're talking about how long should this event be, who are we sending that type of a survey out to? Just the people in this group, or who are you trying to reach with that one?
Good question. And who would like to volunteer to help with putting that survey together? But the question she raises of where's the survey going? What's our scope going to be?
Probably the first thing to do is see what the steering committee thinks before you try any other audiences. Steering committee is going to be easy to reach. Other audiences might be difficult to reach.
Yes, I think that's right.
One small correction. This is Val Larson. I'm going to be talking at a Book of Mormon Studies Association meeting at the LDS Church History Department. Book of Mormon Studies Association has no resources. The Church History Department has quite a few. So if there's any resources, they won't be coming from BOM, so they would be coming from the LDS Historian History Department. What BOMSA can produce is lots of good presentations on the Book of Mormon.
Great. Well, we want to tap the resources available, so thank you.
That's awesome.
Well, I will get to work on drafting a survey to the steering committee, and I'd be pleased to have some help on that. Question of scope. And are we looking broadly enough at this stage? What I've put you through this evening, what I put on the agenda this evening with a colloquy or conference, celebratory activities, activities for youth, worship activities, anything else that ought to be added in this consideration? Well, then Little Red Hen said, I'll do it. So here I am. But if any of you that would like to toss me any good ideas for questions that ought to be included, please do, because I suspect that my survey will be not more than one page.
In the messages, Rachel just offered that she would also help out with that.
Oh, thank you, Rachel. It's so neat how the really busy people are the ones you can count on to help get things done. She is awesome.
Perfect.
And I think all of you that know Rachel would affirm that. If you know Rachel and have had interaction with her, then waving to her and saying thank you, Rachel, would be appropriate. Yeah, she noticed. Yeah, people wanting to commend you. All right, and let me call your attention to that lion and lamb that Carol Kozowski has up behind her that she has painted in the heart. For as we look toward this remarkable event, being able to get the lion and the lamb that resides in each of us to cooperate and be able to get their heads together and reason together. Wow, what an idea. And for us to be able to pull that off, I had the privilege this Saturday of having Stacy Cram as a guest speaker on the Peace Perspectives Forum at the Joseph Smith III home. And she shared with us something of the importance of the common consent principle, showing that when we can get people to reason together, as the Community of Christ has done over the last 6 years, to reason together on the principle of nonviolence, and finally got a nonviolence position established for the church. But it took 6 years. But that was 6 years of people reasoning together, treating each other respectfully, and deciding that we would work it out so that there could be a mutual agreement. And it was tough. In some places, people really didn't want to yield. In some places, people sort of wanted to run away. But it was interesting that 80% of the church population in the delegations supported the final position on nonviolence. But that's after going through the common consent process. And for us to be able to use the common consent process in our steering committee to be able to come up with good ideas, consider them, and use the ones that are going to be most beneficial to all concerned. That prayerful discernment and prayerful consideration and support of each other as you amicably have been working together, those of you that have been in the forum, I am so pleased to be able to welcome all of you that are here serving on this steering committee, and I ask the Lord's blessing as we go forward. Comments, questions before we close? Then let me sing one stanza of a foreign old Judea. In ancient Zarahemla, above the temple towers, appeared the Christ of Judah to crown the watchful hours. A voice serene yet piercing, beyond our words to tell, proclaimed him as the Savior whom prophets did foretell. Of the 500 references to the Christ in the Book of Mormon, the majority show up prior to his birth. And for us to be able to share that message, those messages, to share the message of the Christ to the world, to allow the book to fulfill its purposes, to allow the Lord to fulfill his purposes, is, I believe, our calling and our blessing. And I thank you so deeply for volunteering to participate in this event. May the Lord bless you and give you rest and peace. Good night.